Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us here as we continue to work on our city's climate change goals. Today, we're excited to announce an updated emissions reduction target for our city. We've just seen so much climate impact, climate chaos going on around the country here over this past year. We certainly saw it with the devastating floods in eastern Kentucky, a recent painful reminder of how we've been impacted here and our vulnerability to climate change. We saw it obviously with the tornadoes in western Kentucky as well. And then just most recently, southwest Florida, obviously devastated by the hurricane down there. In 2019, following the demands of our citizens, especially our younger Louisvillians, I want to give credit to our students. We had obviously a big students' march. After their march, I declared climate as an emergency here in our city in order for us to do everything we could to participate with greenhouse gas reductions and other climate-related initiatives as well. And then in 2020, Louisville's greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan recommended an 80% reduction in emissions by 2050. However, since setting this initial target, more recent data and certainly scientific consensus have recommended more ambitious emissions reduction targets to avoid the most catastrophic effects of climate change. And as I said, we're seeing that all around us here, both locally and from the North Pole to the South Pole. So in accordance with the needs of our community, international scientific consensus, and national commitments like the Paris Climate Accord, greenhouse gas emissions must be halved by 2030 and reach net zero emissions by mid-century or sooner. In 2021, Louisville joined hundreds of global cities in the city's race to zero. One of the commitments is to pledge to reach net zero emissions in the 2040s or sooner, in line with global efforts to address climate change. Today, we're proud to fulfill that pledge to safeguard our environment for present and future Louisvillians by setting a new target for Louisville to halve emissions, cut emissions by 50% by 2030, and achieve net zero emissions by 2040. This will build on our growing momentum to deliver a healthier environment and cost savings for residents and businesses. And while this might seem like a daunting task, our city has been hard at work on this for quite some ways, and we will continue to build on our existing efforts. To make these goals a reality, here's the way that we have been doing it and the ways that we're going to continue. When it comes to our built environment, we will build on strategies in our emissions reduction plan, such as making buildings and industry more energy efficient and getting solar on more homes. Historic federal legislation was just passed with the Inflation Reduction Act that's going to further accelerate our work by providing additional consumer tax credits, rebates, grants, and other incentives to help residents and businesses access technologies that will save money and reduce emissions. We cannot overemphasize the importance of the Inflation Reduction Act. From the federal standpoint, it was by far the largest legislation that has ever taken place in our country to attack the impact of climate change. So obviously that flows down to us at the state and the city level, and for that we're very grateful. Now here's a few examples of what we're doing. In transportation, increased densification and advancing Vision Zero efforts to encourage bicycle and pedestrian mobility, and obviously public transportation. In waste, we're advancing organic waste diversion programs and recycling. Now, we focused on sustainability since the start of my term, and we commissioned the city's first ever sustainability plan that's called Sustain Louisville, and it's been online for quite some time. Existing plans, such as the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Reduction Plan and the Prepare Louisville Climate Adaptation Plan and the 100% Clean Energy Resolution passed by Metro Council, already provide a pathway to reduce emissions, and we will be building on those strategies. In 2021, Louisville Metro government hired its first energy manager and reduced our energy consumption, Louisville Metro government, by 10%. We saved over $1.2 million and avoided 10,000 tons of CO2 equivalent emissions, and that money is going into other climate reduction activities. The work to reduce the city emissions and energy consumption is part of your city government's goals of 100% renewable electricity for metro operations by 2030, 100% clean energy for metro operations by 2035, and 100% clean energy community-wide by 2040. In 2020, I signed an executive order directing all Louisville Metro government agencies to prioritize the purchasing of electric and hybrid vehicles and asked private businesses to follow suit. Just last week, we announced $9.1 million in private energy efficiency loans that will be available to back millions of dollars in loans to help a couple of local businesses become greener. We announced that at the new club called Number 15 on Whiskey Row that'll be opening next year in the Tempo Hotel by Hilton. These funds will come through the city's Energy Project Assessment District Program, the EPAD program. Loans will help the businesses start on energy projects with no down payment. We're currently looking at how to reinvest those savings in ways that will reduce our energy usage even more. Earlier this year, we launched Solar Over Louisville Campaign to encourage residents to invest in solar power and move us closer to our goal of 100% clean energy community-wide by 2040. The program, which closed last week, will be installing solar panels on over 90 homes, including a handful of low-income homes through our solar grant program. We also began working with a national organization called the National Energy Renewable Laboratory, or NREL. They are helping us chart a course for meeting our 2030 goal, including looking at the possibility of creating a city-owned utility that would use renewable energy to power city buildings. Louisville was also one of 24 communities selected by the U.S. Department of Energy for the Community's LEAP pilot program that will help integrate energy efficiency and clean energy into affordable housing to deliver cost savings for our most energy-burdened residents when it comes to cost. We're making progress. Last year, we received LEED Silver certification from the U.S. Green Building Council and earned an A-list ranking from the global environmental nonprofit CDP for the second year in a row. So we're getting noticed for our work. So it's an exciting time for our city, and it's absolutely imperative that we move as fast as we possibly can. I really want to thank and recognize our advanced planning and sustainability team for their work studying, researching, recommending, and leading and coordinating this work on behalf of Metro government. This great team is standing behind us. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you all very much. So today, Louisville commits to achieving zero greenhouse gas emissions community-wide by 2040 in accordance with science-based targets, joining 1,000-plus national and international peer cities. To tell us a little bit more about that, please welcome Rachel Hamilton. She's director of our Air Pollution Control District, who's going to highlight some of their programs and recent successes. Rachel?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Fisher. You know, Mayor Fisher used the word this morning, momentum. I'm going to just say that this is a momentous occasion. The city's leadership on sustainability has created a foundation that supports the Air Pollution Control District and the hard work of our staff who implement laws and programs responsible for decreasing emissions and improving Louisville's air quality. When we switch to cleaner energy, we reduce air pollution. That includes things like particulate matter, nitrogen oxides. Those form ozone, which has always been a challenge here in Louisville. I can't tell you how grateful I am to have the city partners behind me this morning for helping us improve the air that you breathe. I'm very proud to recognize our newest program, the Air Quality Action Partners, which was just last week designated as a best practice in air pollution control by the Association of Air Pollution Control Agencies, or APCA. The Air Quality Action Partners program encourages local businesses to take voluntary action, and this is beyond their regulatory requirements, to reduce their emissions and improve air quality. Our first year of the program had 23 businesses join us, and their actions, in addition to reducing emissions of criteria pollutants and air toxics, helped to avoid more than 29,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions. We'd like to invite every business in Louisville to join us in our Air Quality Action Partner Program, and more information about the program is available on our website. I'd also like to acknowledge the hard work of some of our other programs, the Kentuckiana Air Education Program, or CARE, Drive Clean Louisville, and our Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program, which since starting nearly 20 years ago, has issued nearly 12,000 rebates on lower emitting lawn equipment and kept more than 4 million pounds of pollution from Louisville's air. These are excellent examples of the work we can do together. A resident buying their first electric lawn equipment, a business investing in more sustainable equipment, and a local government helping make these sometimes daunting transitions a little bit more accessible. I'd also like to share my thanks as well for the Inflation Reduction Act funding. That certainly will help move things forward both at a local and a national level. We're making progress here in Louisville. Notably, our air monitoring data show that Louisville's air now meets each of the health-based national ambient air quality standards set by EPA. This couldn't be done without significant emissions reductions from a variety of sources. As Mayor Fisher said, Louisville's progress must continue. The science demands it, and our community deserves it. And this includes issues that not only impact physical health, but quality of life as well. We take our responsibilities seriously, and APCD is prepared to continue the hard work required to make the progress our city deserves. I want to thank Mayor Fisher again. I really want to thank my Metro peers for this action today in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This is an incredibly exciting time for us all to be working together, and I look forward to the air quality progress this work will bring. Mayor Fisher, thank you.
Thank you, Director. We appreciate that. We can't get this work done, obviously, without full buy-in from the Metro Council and the citizens of Louisville. Obviously, the government should be a leader in this work, and hopefully that's what you're seeing. We've got businesses, obviously, that step up as well. We also have Metro Council people that step up as well. So I really want to thank District 21 Councilwoman Nicole George for her leading efforts on sustainability, and she's here today to share a few remarks with us. Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning. It's an honor to be here, standing with those who do the work every day to ensure that Louisville continues to be resilient and that the natural resources we have will be available for generations to come. First, I want to thank our team with Advanced Planning and Sustainability. They deserve an award because I require an ongoing science lesson on the carbon emissions and the relationship between burning fossil fuels, coal, natural gas, and its relationship with climate change and natural disasters. But here's where no lesson is needed. We see the increase in extreme weather as evidenced by FEMA declarations, and we see that we see impacts at every level. So whether that's nationally with Hurricane Ian, statewide with tornadoes in the west and flooding in the east, and locally with increases in extreme rain day events and impacts to flooding locally in our neighborhoods. These disasters cost taxpayers nationwide over $1 billion a year. And we know that the impacts are disproportionately felt by those with fewer resources and fewer choices about where they live and how they secure basic needs. I also know that our city has a responsibility, for all the reasons Mayor Fisher announced, to adjust our goals when confronted with science-based evidence. And that's what this executive order will do today. It's important to know that this order codifies work already being done in Metro and aligns with a commitment my colleagues and I made when in 2019, former Councilman Brandon Cohn and Councilmember Bill Hollander sponsored the 100% Clean Renewable Energy Resolution. In the upcoming days, you'll also see a corresponding resolution filed to solidify our commitment to zero greenhouse gas emissions. It's also worth knowing that local government is not alone in our efforts. I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to District 21-based UPS for their commitment in setting a net zero emissions target. We know they're one of many businesses in the community leading the way. Climate change is a top issue concerning our youth today. In fact, We saw that with the student-driven organizing that led to Mayor Fisher's declaration of a climate emergency in 2019. Youth today focus on climate change because ultimately they're the ones who will live with the consequences of inadequate planning and inaction. The good news is that doesn't have to be the case, and we're taking the steps today to ensure that future generations are set up for success and health.
So it's an executive order establishing a science-based target of zero greenhouse gas emissions community-wide by 2040 in Louisville and Jefferson County. And it's got all kind of whereases that are in the press statement that I won't read through here, but I think the need for action by government and private citizens and businesses is more than clear to address our climate crisis, and our metro government certainly is happy to be a leader in this initiative, and that's what this executive order says, so I will sign it now. Put it into law. All right, with that, are there any questions? It's important to note that this is just an extension of the work that we have been doing. And so we're increasing the goals, if you will. We're moving them up a couple of years. So this is work that we've been doing for quite some time. And our Advanced Planning and Sustainability team, APCD, obviously has been deep into this work for my administration and then before that as well. And so there's some things that are unfinished business, I guess I would say, still here in my last 100 days or so, and this is one I think that's important to go ahead and set this in place. And it's funny you mentioned that, because as I was standing back there as the councilman was speaking, I was thinking about my granddaughters, and they're 3 years old and 6 months old. And when we're talking about our students being great leaders in the community on issues around climate, you know, it makes me think that, you know, what's our planet going to look like after I'm gone? It's going to be up to Penny and Sophia and other kids and grandkids that are up here to help chart us through that. So it's the right thing to do, obviously, for our community, but it's all personal for each of us, I think, when we think about our kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews. Thank you for that softball question.
And then a question for the project leader. It's my understanding that we have support from mega companies. Councilman George has touched on the fact that by 2050, UPS had made a pledge years ago to try and lower their emissions. Brown Foreman stands with you on this. Young stands with you on this. Why do you think you're getting such a response from the community?
Yeah. This is Sumedha with the Office of Advanced Planning and Sustainability. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator. I think businesses have long recognized this as a priority, not just for environmental reasons, but to meet their bottom line and also to meet consumer demands. So we're seeing a lot of these companies take leadership on these even before Metro government. And we feel like now that we are on board with these goals and accelerating a lot of our programs, it's only going to support them in helping meet their goals faster as well. So it's definitely going to be a collaborative effort.
And as this, my final question, as this continues forward and we get closer to 2030 and that goal and 2040, do you think more businesses in Louisville and the metro area will come on board?
We certainly hope so. I think that with the increasing incentives that we're able to provide through government and the Inflation Reduction Act, it'll just get easier to take a lot of these steps. We have seen that a lot of businesses are interested in this, but it's not always accessible. So we think that it's definitely going to get easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumedha. And I think the other thing is, you know, young people in particular are not going to go to work for companies that are not environmentally responsible. And then customers are not going to buy from companies that are not environmentally responsible as well. And it was probably 5 to 10 years ago where you saw most companies finally get rid of this myth that I can either be environmentally responsible or I can drive my bottom line. Companies now understand it's both. It's not an either or. And we've seen tremendous progress in the cost reduction of alternative energy, for instance. You know, big report came out again today just accentuating that, you know, wind and solar are cheaper than coal-based energy, okay? So the scale, as this all scales up, and it's going to be really dramatic when you see the Inflation Reduction Act come into play all around the country, where there's EV grid to be able to challenge around the electrification of our fleet. So this next 10 years, there's going to be just huge momentum in this space. And the companies that don't get on board, I think, are going to be left behind by the consumers. Okay, well, thank you all for covering this very important message today. Thanks for coming out.